Welcome back. This is The Globe on SABC News. We continue with our rolling coverage on the developments coming out of Nkandla, former President Jacob Zuma's residence. We're now joined on the line by UDM leader Bantu Holomisa. Mr. Holomisa, very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to The Globe.
And good evening.
What are your reflections on what came out of Nkandla and the sentiments shared by former President Jacob Zuma?
I'm not going to get involved into nitty-gritties of the legalities of the Nkandla matter. But I'm a little bit concerned about the behavior of the ruling party. The provocative statements and threats of violence by ANC members must be condemned. And they are sending a strong signal and message to the outside world, including here in South Africa. The law enforcement agencies in this country were warned long before this incident by ANC members that they would converge in Nkandla. They did nothing. There was no plan, and those people just came in thousands. And nobody is controlling the situation. Cele and his commissioner, Minister Cele and his commissioner must take control of that national key point called Nkandla, where the former president lives, and make sure that they comb that area. The people who should be there is the president, his family, and sometimes his lawyers, in which they are preparing for the next phase of their legal case. So we need to chase away all those bandits who threaten war away from Nkandla. Remember also that it would be bad if the judges or the Concord is seen to be changing because there are threats. In other words, when judges deal with his case, the case of rescission.
Now, General Holomisa, you say you're lamenting the fact that the police minister failed in his oversight of ensuring that only Zuma's family and perhaps his lawyers should have been at that Nkandla compound. But we've seen visuals earlier of hundreds and possibly thousands of ANC and maybe Zuma supporters descending on that Nkandla residence. So who do you think should be held responsible for the clear violation and flouting of COVID-19 rules? Should it be the ANC? Should it be Jacob Zuma himself, or should it be the police minister whose forces did not ensure that everybody abides by the lockdown regulations?
I'm sure you didn't hear me. I said the police failed this country because they had the ANC members threatening war long before they descended to Nkandla. And they said, we will be there, we will die for Mr. Zuma. And they went there to do exactly that. I'm saying, Minister Commissioner of Police must take control from now on of President's residence, because that's a national key point. Let President Zuma and his family and lawyers deal with his case on the 12th of July in the Concord. In the process, we must comb that area. That is our law enforcement agencies. Chase those bandits away in that area, so that if they want to fight, they must go to the bush and come and fight the law enforcement of this country. We cannot allow this anarchy and chaos.
All right, Mr. Holomisa, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your thoughts on this matter. That was UDM leader Bantu Holomisa joining us on the line. And to get a political perspective on what former President Jacob Zuma said during his media address a short while ago, we're now joined via Zoom by political analyst William Gumede. Mr. Gumede, a very good evening to you. Thanks for joining us. What are your thoughts on what came out of Nkandla a short while ago?
Yes, yeah, we almost expected this is going to happen. The president, the former president Jacob Zuma, is really here now. He's refusing to go to jail. And remember, earlier on, he said, many times that he's prepared to go to jail. I think he did not expect that there will be a jail sentence. He thought because of his the power of his threat of potential violence, that even the judiciary would be intimidated and would just give him a slap on the wrist. And he did not expect this. So this is coming unexpected, because you have to remember, the president and many other ANC leaders also do think they're untouchable, that they're above, the constitution and the democratic institutions, and no one can tell them. So he did not expect that. This is an absolute surprise.
And I think we should always take note of his consistent criticism of the Constitutional Court judges, whom he claimed that always conspire against him. In his address earlier on, he said that, a trial, a sentencing without trial is similar to that detention without trial during the apartheid era. So this says a lot about the integrity of the Constitutional Court and its judges, isn't it?
I mean, the most important thing about the Constitutional Court, really, it has proven it is the last line of defense, the last frontier to defend our democracy. The sad part of all of this is, the ANC as a governing party has not provided a leadership. I mean, the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, for example, he's absent. We've got a vacuum in leadership in the country right now. And it's been the judiciary. The ANC should have a very long time ago already suspended Jacob Zuma, or even, fired him as a member of the party because of his attacks, both against the constitution, against the judiciary, and also against, the president himself. So they should have done that. So, again, it is, the judiciary that provides the leadership. It has been civil society that provides the leadership. And you wonder, where is the governing party to provide the leadership that, the courts becomes, the leadership of the country, because it appears, that the governing party, it just lacks the leadership, lacks the moral authority, doesn't have the courage of the convictions, to really face down Jacob Zuma, because he has to, no one is above the constitution and no one is above the law of the country. And, it's very important from an equality point of view that he goes to prison.
Now, Professor Gumede, you said that you correctly alluded to the fact that the Constitutional Court is and should be the last line of defense for our judiciary. But then it does appear that the same Constitutional Court has abdicated that role and that position to the lower courts by allowing former President Jacob Zuma to make an application to the lower court, in this particular instance, the Pietermaritzburg High Court, to apply for an order of rescission of the Constitutional Court judgment.
From where I'm sitting, it clearly, the Constitutional Court, because firstly, we have to remember this is unprecedented. This has never, ever happened.
Totally.
There are no provisions for this, and so on. So, and I think that is, the Constitutional Court is giving him a bit of room to maneuver, because this is so unprecedented. But again, even that, one has to be critical of the Constitutional Court, even giving Zuma another appeal. Because everything that's happening here now, as a precedent is being set, in the future, if the Constitutional Court gives the judgment, other people are also going to demand another appeal. So the Constitutional Court judges must really be mature, and they have to be, aware of the consequences of every decision here now. And because it's very important for the credibility and the authority of the Constitutional Court that its judgments are accepted and respected. And if you don't respect it, then the law, must have to take its course.
If the Pietermaritzburg High Court rules in Mr. Zuma's case, then is this not an implication that the Constitutional Court has its powers eroded? And will it not apply or imply that the Constitutional Court is sort of bending to political pressure?
No, it wouldn't undermine necessarily, the power of the Constitutional Court. I think really the criticism of the Constitutional Court really here is just, in allowing to give Jacob Zuma another chance. I mean, Jacob Zuma has been for years attacking the court system, attacking the Constitutional Court. And he's been very defiant. I mean, his supporters right now are defiant of the law, of the Constitution, and of the Constitutional Court to give him another chance after years and years of attack. And I'll tell you just comparatively, I mean, early in the year and in France, the former French president, for a much lesser criticism of the lower courts in their country, got a year sentence. So around the world, if you're going to attack, the highest court in a country, and if you undermine the Constitution, whether you're a president or whether you're a prime minister or whether you're a former leader, the law must take its course. I mean, we shouldn't give Jacob Zuma even more opportunities. He should be. We must ask ourselves the question: if it was an ordinary citizen of South Africa, an ordinary person, a rural person, say one of his neighbors in Kantla, a rural person living in a hut, will that person have the ability, to get a second chance to appeal after the Constitutional Court have made a judgment? No, that would not be the case. So then, we're running into problems.
Now, Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo is now the acting Chief Justice, and, it's not very clear for how long he will be acting in that position. So, is there an implication that he might recuse himself?
I guess, that's what he would do and what he should do. But remember, when the Constitutional Court made a judgment, I mean, it was the majority of the, of the bench there. So, whether Raymond Zondo is part of it or not part of it, I think that's not, the major issue. I mean, the Constitutional Court gave its judgment. It's, that's the pass. The judgment stands. And I know some people want to bring in now, Judge Zondo and say, well, because he's now the acting Chief Justice, the court is going to be more biased. That is, I think this is a red herring. The Constitutional Court made its pronouncement, and that pronouncement stands.
So, should we read too much into Mr. Zuma's constant juxtaposition to what's happening now, in his life and in his political career, and what happened during the apartheid era? Really, when people, clearly he's grasping for straws now to try now to compare him now to what happened in the apartheid era. We have to live in the present. I mean, he presided for 9 years, over South Africa as a president, and we lost, 2-3 trillion rand under his presidency. And I think even most probably what ordinary citizens must begin to do now, that maybe people have to go to court actually and take on, Mr. Zuma in his personal capacity. If you have lost your job because of corruption, like let's just say South African Airways, people are unemployed because, when Zuma was president, he appointed a really incompetent people to run it, and now people are jobless. I think people must actually, as ordinary citizens of South Africa, must actually take people like Zuma to court in their personal capacities so that they can pay back the money if you have lost money, if you've gone to a hospital, your family members gone to a hospital, and a person died there because of corruption, a tender has been corruptly given, and there was no hospital equipment, and you die, or your family member died. People must actually take Jacob Zuma and other politicians responsible for those sort of things to court, so they can see the consequences of their action. It does appear that Jacob Zuma and many other ANC leaders do not see the consequences of their action. The unemployment, the hunger, the starvation, the breaking up of families because of corruption. And I think we should, and as ordinary South Africans, should stop trying to deflect to apartheid and colonialism. I mean, if you are corrupt, you are corrupt. Don't try to blame
colonialism. I mean, just think about it when he used state money to build Nkandla. Then he says no. It is those who criticize him are under the influence of imperialism and colonialism, or former apartheid agents and so on. Really, we have to be honest, and we can't come up with those excuses anymore.
Professor Gumede, I want us to talk a bit more about Advocate Dali Mpofu, the senior counsel, who is a revered, legal eagle here in South Africa. We've seen earlier on former President Jacob Zuma heaping praises on Dali Mpofu, saying that he's the reason why he'll be sleeping at home tonight and he won't be going to jail as per the order of the Constitutional Court. And we've also heard the suspended ANC Secretary General Ace Magashule that, people shouldn't look into why Dali Mpofu is representing an ANC member, because Dali Mpofu was with them in the trenches during the apartheid era. So is this Dali Mpofu and an alliance of forces an indication that perhaps the EFF could work closely with the ANC at some point?
Dali Mpofu is, he's a legal eagle here. He's doing a job. It's nothing to do with politics here. I mean, his job, is his income. His income to defend, he's taken the brief to defend Jacob Zuma. It's his job. It's nothing to do with politics. It's nothing to do with alliances. But nevertheless, I think if Jacob Zuma, if he has a problem with our constitutional system, with the Constitutional Court, with the ANC, with President Cyril Ramaphosa, then he should start his own political party and maybe have an alliance with the EFF and contest for elections. But I think most probably the biggest story here is clearly the fact that Jacob Zuma has been sentenced to jail is dividing the ANC down the middle. And, the ANC has up to now have not dealt with many of his members who are populist, who are against the constitutional system, who are corrupt, and so on. And I think now this judgment, the ANC cannot postpone anymore to deal with, some people like Mr. Zuma who don't follow the law and who have been accused of wrongdoing. They cannot be in the house of the ANC anymore. And the ANC really has to make the decision. Will it defend the constitution of the country? Will it fight for the people and the ordinary citizens of South Africa? Or will it fight for the likes of Jacob Zuma? And then means if you're going to back Jacob Zuma, you are against ordinary citizens, you are against the future of the country, you are against service delivery, and so on.
Professor William Gumede, great chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time. That was Professor William Gumede, political analyst, joining us via